second mimer in the Hemshech Basa Baganim. This one was meant to be read on Yud Gimel Shvat, which is the yurtzeit of his mother, Shterna Sarah, Rebbetzin Shterna Sarah. The first one was for the grandmother.
Oh,
okay. There's a lot of yurtzeits of holy women in Shvat. Also the Rebbetzin and the Rebbe is Chav Beis Shvat. And of course the Friedrich Rebbe was in Shvat. So you have Shvat is sort of the month of holy yurtzeits. Okay, so this is the second mimer. Just in time, label. We didn't start just yet. We waited for you. Hayosheves baganim, chaverim makshivim lekolech hashmieni. Hayosheves baganim, he who sits in gardens. Chaverim literally means friends. Makshivim lekolech, listen to your voice. Hashmieni, listen to me. Okay, so it's a little bit of a Perush Rashi was required, so the next line is Perush Rashi. What does it mean? Hayosheves baganim. What does it mean? Hayosheves baganim. He who sits in gardens. Hakadosh Baruch Hu Omer leKnesset Yisrael. So this is all of a sudden Hashem is talking to the Jewish people. Hayosheat hanafutze bagola. You who are spread out in the gullus. Roeh baganim shelachedim, and you're pasturing in the gardens of others. And you're sitting in shuls and study houses. So that's what it means, hayosheves baganim. Now we can put the meaning into it. He who sits in gardens is Hashem addressing the Jewish people who are sitting in the gardens of others, in other words, in other people's places, but they're finding themselves nonetheless in shuls. So it says, Chaverim makshivim lekolech. What does it mean, Chaverim makshivim, that friends are listening? That's Malachei Asharis. The ministering angels are the friends. Shechem chaverecha, because they're your friends. Why are they called your friends? B'nei Elokim dugmascha. Because they're also the children of God in your image. They're sort of spiritually aligned with us. So they're called our friends that are listening to our voice in the study house. They're coming to hear our voice in the shuls.
as we speak.
Right now. Uhu me'a Midrash Rabbah, and this comes from Midrash Rabbah. This Perush. The Beshash Yisrael Yoshvim bebati Knesset u'bati midrashos. At the time, when the Jewish people are sitting in the shuls and the study houses, and they're learning, saying the Shema, and they're learning Torah. Chaveri makshivim, friends listen. What does it mean? Ani Upamal Yashali Baim Lishmoal Bekolech. I and my sort of legions, my hosts, come to hear your voice. Okay? V'od Yisab Midrash Rabbah. Another explanation in the Midrash Rabbah on the same verse. Chaverim Nikroi Malachei Asharis. It says that friends are called ministering angels. Why? Because they don't have any, between them, any jealousy or hatred or competition. So they're called friends. The angels are called friends because they don't fight with each other. They're friends with each other. And therefore, those who are sitting in Torah, who are learning Torah, occupied in Torah, and sitting in the gardens of the shuls. Now here the shul is called the garden. Hine gama chaverim. Even these friends who are such a high level, they don't have any hatred or anything. Shem malachei asharis makshivim lekolam. Even they come and hear our voice. In other words, even though we're down here in a world where there is jealousy and hatred and so forth, but when we sit in the shul, nonetheless, even these wondrous creatures come to hear what we have to say. Okay, so now here's what's called the hemshech, right? So many. Every time you have a hemshech of many maimarim that come back to back, so there's always like a lead-in, and then this line. So to understand this, we have to first preface Mashin Isbar Leil, what we learned above in the previous Maimer, the Avoda b'Mishkan u'Mikdash, and now he just brings us right back in, like nothing happened there. We're in the middle of the other Maimer now. That the Avoda of the Mishkan and the Mikdash, hu lahavcha chashuch l'nahora, this is to transform darkness to light. The Achoshech atzmo ya'ir, that the darkness itself shines. Like we said, when you bring the animal eventually onto the altar, then that animalistic thing itself becomes part of a divine service, and it itself shines. And not only, as we said over there, do you sort of subdue the enemy, which means it's still an enemy lurking, but it's just not getting it's a chance to express itself, but you get to a point where even the darkness shines. This is a true uprooting of the enemy, because there's no more darkness, it's now shining. And therefore, to indicate this, to illustrate this, the Mishkan was made of atzei shitim, which means which means this, it's an example of doing just that. The whole Mishkan itself is made of shtus.
You should go to university.
So you take the shtus, which is turning the darkness of the world, and you transform it into the beams of the Beis Hamikdash, and it becomes shtus now of kedusha, which means the darkness itself now shines. And when this is accomplished, then you become a mikdash, which means Hashem dwells inside of you. To get Hashem to dwell inside of you, there's only one way. Adam ki yakriv miken. And the whole idea is like bringing a carbon. You have to bring yourself, your animalistic self, to God, and first sacrifice Him, then transform Him, and then Asuli mikdash, make yourself a mikdash. That's what it means to make yourself a mikdash. To turn your shtus to l'umadze into shtus to kedusha, but then b'shachanti b'socham. That is the recipe for Hashem dwelling inside of you, which is giloi or hasovic, which reveals a light which is higher than all the worlds, which, as we said, equates the light even of Atzilus to Asiya, which means there's no more range of something called high and low. And when you bring forth this light, which is sort of defies high and low, then even the dafka in the low place, it's also able to be a kli for something which is beyond the boundaries of the world, the Ora Sobe. Follow this? Yeah? Okay. So we're going on. Vav. So he starts with Vav because we're already mamash in the middle of the other mimer. He doesn't even start over with Aleph. And he says, V'hine b'zeh yuvan Masha Atzei Mishkan Nikroim Hashem Krashim. Okay, so even though they're called Atzei Shitim, that's the name of the wood. But from here it's understood why the wood of the Mishkan itself is called by the name Krashim, which means boards. A keresh is a board. A board of wood. Yeah. In other words, the name of the wood was cedar wood or whatever it might be, acacia, but the name for the board is krashim. As it says in the verse, you shall make the boards for the Mishkan out of atzei shitim, omdim, standing up. Omdim as opposed to lying flat, the boards were vertical as opposed to horizontal. Be Yura Inyan. Chaim, come around. Ubi Yura Inyan. Dehine b'hak. So to explain this matter, Dehine hakdamas hazohar. Be'inyan ha'osios. So the Zohar begins. There's a preface of the Zohar. It starts with the inyan of the osios. It starts talking about the letters of the Aleph base. And it says, the alu kamed kucha brichu buhu alma. Right? That they all came before Hashem when it came time to creating the world. World. Like olam. Right? And each letter came before Hashem. They all wanted to be the letter that Hashem created the world with. So all the letters came before Hashem to sort of try out. Auditions. So it says, Isa, the os kuf reish, asvan, is chaziu, al sitra bisha inu. So when Kuf and Reish came to interview for the job, it said that they were rejected. Because it said that Kuf and Reish are letters that appear on the sitra ach, the side of evil. Kuf and Reish. Begin the iskaima, and in order to maintain their existence, not leo shin begavaihu, they took a shin in between them, have kesher, and then they made what's called the word kesher. If you take a shin, you put it in between a kuf and a reish, you get the word kesher, which means a knot. So in other words, a knot means they're holding on, they're tied on. They themselves would have fallen off, so to speak, because they're letters on the sitra achra. But in order to exist, they took a little shin in the middle.
What's leitzkima?
Liskaima is to exist. Lumibara is to create. Yeah. You got it? Above this, in other words, previous to this episode with the kuf and the reish, ba'o shin, when the shin was being discussed, Isa, it's brought hoyul va'asvin d'ziyufa. It says, since they are letters of counterfeit letters, like their ziyufa is like, they're like liars basically, faking out. Therefore, natlin lach l'mahavi imhon, they took you to be with them. This is like Hashem addressing the shin, right? So he's saying to the shin that since those letters are like false letters, they took you to be with them, right? And therefore, lo ba'ina l'mivari bach alma. And this shin was also getting his walk-in papers, right? He says, because those two letters took you with them, as we just described, lo ba'ina l'mibari bach alma, then I don't want to create with you the world either. You got those words in there? Ba'ina is want, yeah.
But Alma is world.
What? Alma is world.
Alma.
Ba'ina is want. So the shin got it for being connected with them, and they got it, and it was said that the shin was, they took the shin to make a kesher. And why did they take the shin dafka? They begin the lo iskai mashikra. Because basically, why didn't you take the shin? Because those two letters grab onto you, and therefore I don't want to make the world with you. To begin the lo iskai mashikra, so that it shouldn't exist sheker, falseness. You get this? He's like another cool thing going on here. Kesher and sheker have the same letters. So the kuf and the reish, they took the shin because they knew they were going to fall off and they wanted to connect. So they grabbed the shin to connect. There's another thing, that these two letters are also counterfeit, false letters. And if they take a shin, then we know that they stay connected, right? And Hashem didn't want them to stay connected because that would have kept sheker in the world. If Hashem would have created the world with a shin, and the shin can be used to keep the kuf and the reish, which are counterfeits, in existence, because we just explained that, then that would have enabled there to be sheker in the world. It would have given room for sheker, for falseness, to have its existence given to it. So that's why the shin was also rejected, because it matches up too nicely with these letters kuf and reish. And from here we learn a lesson. Mikan man de boy lamei shikra. From here, someone who wants to say falseness, a lie, yitol yesoda dikshot. He'll first take a foundation of truth, which is a very bekadamisa. In other words, at first, right? He'll first tell you something true. Someone who wants to lie to you, first he'll tell you something true. Ulavasar yukim le shikra, and then afterwards, his sheker will be established. Right? Which is like the famous concept that there's always a little truth mixed in with every lie.
What's a sheker?
Sheker means a lie. The ha as shin as kshot ihu, because the letter shin is a letter of truth. As kshot da'avasan disyachdu ba. And what does it mean? It's the letter of truth that the fathers, the avos, united with, because they were connected with the name Shin and Dalid Yud, Kel Shakai, right? So Hashem appeared to them with the name of God, which starts with a Shin. It's the name of truth. It's a letter of truth that the fathers united with. So did you guys follow this whole thing?
Did you say that united?
Shin.
Kel?
No, Shakai. That was the name that God appeared to the fathers with. So, again, just outside in basically clear language, we said that Kuf and Reish rejected because they come from the bad side. And they grabbed on a Shin so that they could stay connected. So they were rejected. And then the Shin itself in his own little interview was rejected, because even though he's a good guy, he was rejected because the Kuf and the Shin, who are false, represent lie. They always grab onto him so that their lie will be believed. Because Shin is a letter of truth. And if any lie you're going to tell, you have to tell a little truth first in the beginning of it. And that's why the word sheker is spelled first with a Shin and then a Kuf Reish. Because if you're going to have a Kuf Reish, which are lying to you, they're going to slap a Shin in the beginning in order that first they tell you something true, so you listen and you believe them in their lie. And so therefore, if Hashem created the world with a Shin, lying would have been given place in the world, so he was rejected. But the Shin itself is a letter of truth, which the Avos united with, that name of God. Okay? So it says, Hine Kuf Reish, so skip all the Hebrew translation there. Hine Kuf Reish, Hen Leneged Dalid Vehei. So the letters Kuf and Reish correspond to the letters Dalid and Hey. Why? Reish misdame le'adalis, va'kuf los Hey. Because if you look at the letters, they correspond to each other. The Reish is compared to a Dalid, it looks almost exactly like a Dalid, and a Kuf looks almost exactly like a Hey. It's just that the left side of the Kuf is drawn down, right? But ultimately it's a similar shape. The Dalid v'Reish, hine domim zeh lezeh, the Dalid and the Reish are compared to each other, b'demusan, b'kein b'perusha, both in their appearance and also in their meaning. And there was the word Reish, the word Dalid. Those are also words, they're not just letters. And they also mean similar things. The Dalid, hu melashin dalus va'anius. The word Dalid comes from the word dalus, which means poor, poverty and poorness. The Sphiros, who Sphiros HaMalchus. And regarding Sphiros, what Sphira does Dalid symbolize? The Sphira of Malchus. Why? Delay slay migar maklum. Because it has nothing of its own. Malchus is an empty vessel, waiting to be filled. In other words, all the other vessels are kochos, which have certain powers. Chesed is expressive and Gevurah is retractive, whatever it is. But the Malchus, which is like compared to the mouth, Malchus Peh, Torah Shabal Peh Karinan La. Malchus is called the mouth because the mouth doesn't have its own power. It just has whatever you put into it from the emotions and the intellect. So it's just a receiver, so it's poor. So therefore the Dalid, which means poor, is connected with the sphere of Malchus. Ubekochas HaNefesh HaAdam. And when it comes to, that's in Sphiros, just pure Kabbalistic Sphiros, it represents Malchus. But when it comes to Kochos HaNefesh, how these Sphiros then compare to our soul powers, which I just explained, Kochos Nefesh HaAdam, Hu Koach HaDibur. So the Dalid represents the power of speech, as we just explained. Shehi mekabeles v'levush lakochos shelamayla mimen. Which speech is a receiver and a garment for the powers which are above it, as we just said, because speech doesn't have its own life force. It's just a receiver from your intellect and your emotions. You can't speak just from the power of speech alone. Speech, you have to only speak when you put something into it, the gas in the car, basically, which is your feelings or your intelligence. Then you can speak. So basically, it's a garment which, if you just have intelligence and emotion, you still can't speak. Because if you don't have the function and the power of speech, then your emotions and your intelligence have no